Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing fantastic today. This is Juan Castillo from DNAVerse, and welcome back to one more episode of the podcast. Today, we have a great guy. I couldn't say he's my friend because we met only once, but the only time that we were talking, I found it so interesting that I said, okay, you need to come to the podcast. He's a health and autonomy technology expert and author of several publications related to health, transhumanism, and the use of unconsciousness to power our life. He's quite involved in the use of technology and data for healthcare innovation, and his name is Lucas Perez, and he's the co-founder of Health for My Project. Lucas, welcome. Great having you today.
Thank you. Hi, Juan. Thank you for having me today, and it's a pleasure to talk about all these decentralized technologies. And so what I'm doing DNAVerse, of course. And yes, and I'm here to talk further about.
It's our pleasure. I don't know why, but since we spoke last time, we only talked once. But we were so open, we were talking about the possibilities, everything that we are doing. I think we have a great connection. That's why I say, I wouldn't say it's my friend because we just met once, but this synergy was really immediate. And I said, okay, we need to talk, we need to see what can we do in the future together. Lucas, the floor is yours. So please tell us about your journey. How did you end up, first of all, doing healthcare, but right now you are founding this company, Health My Project, and really involved in blockchain. Tell us about the whole process on your journey.
Okay, so my name is Lucas Perez, and I'm the French representative for a network called the European Institute of Technology and Innovation in Health. That is an independent body from the European Commission. And from many years, I'm running a web series where I talk about all these disruptive and innovative solutions in healthcare, including, of course, blockchain, decentralized technology, but also artificial intelligence, longevity, aging solutions, and machine learning. And in the meanwhile, I'm also a strategic and medical expert in the field of healthcare. And autonomy is an interesting concept. An interesting concept I approached when I was a researcher. I was a researcher in France, and my first study was the gerund technologies, also known as the technology for the autonomy of seniors and by transversality, the autonomy of disabled people. And this field was very interesting at this point because when I was studying and I was researching in that, I learned more about digital health. When you approach digital health, you go inevitably to decentralized technology. And it was my first field of research. After that, I went to the pharmaceutical industry, in a famous pharmaceutical industry specialized in the diagnostics. And after that, I decided to create my own structures with a medical specialist, an orthopedic surgeon. And the idea was to expertise all the projects related to healthcare and autonomy, giving a sort of a medical vision and a strategical vision, because the strategical vision is linked to the medical vision. Is your product, for example, is medical, non-medical purpose? And regarding all the mobile apps on the stores, for now, there is maybe more than, I think, 200,000 or 300,000 mobile apps on different stores, Google, Apple, and the amount of mobile apps is huge. And in this mobile app, you have a lot of non-medical purpose mobile app. And yes, with our team, we try to give this medical dimension to this project. And after that, we maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we saw certain projects willing to include in their mobile and connected health project some of decentralized technology. For example, including some tokens, some incentivization services for example, like the project we talked last time, Stefan, you use your smartphone, you use all the sensors in your smartphone to prove you walk, to prove you play at this game, to prove something. And this proof is stored on the blockchain. And you get some rewards, you get some services, you get some products. Yeah. And it's a new way to see maybe healthcare today with these decentralized technologies.
Yeah. When did you see actually the integration of I don't like to use so much Web3 because it's a really would say, overused concept. It includes so many things. But when did you see exactly that Web3 was taking over? As you were saying, I was consulting with some companies, and some of them were already thinking of tokens, blockchain. When did you see the year exactly where there was a breakthrough there?
Yeah, the Web series was very important to collect some ideas, because this area is very huge, is very interconnected to another areas, to another fields. And what we saw with the Web series is a sort of educational content. Web series is a part of our consulting services with the Health My Project, but this web series, this European web series, is also a fabulous way to give some inspirational and ideological content to push a certain. For example, we had a web series on microfluidics. Microfluidics is the science of fluids. To, for example, make some organ on chip and make some research in the aging field. And we saw some interconnection maybe with the artificial intelligence, but also with blockchain, because blockchain is the science of storage somewhere, and you can store this data mixed to an artificial intelligence, for example, to accelerate the data process, and you can make everything with this type of technology. So consulting part is very connected to this educational part. So it's intricate.
Yeah, I think that's what I said before. The Web3 concept englobes so many things that are actually interconnected to each other, and independent which area you're moving, in which direction you're moving, you can utilize this thing or that thing. And I think that's why Web3 is a bit misused in that regard. So what is the fit of your project, Health My Project actually is called? What do you offer in this ecosystem, and what's the main application to the companies that actually want to bring Web3 into the equation?
So as I said, Health My Project is a consulting company, and we provide some medical and strategical reports to little and big companies and government also. And we try to also be a sort of an ideological organs regarding all these new technologies. And at this moment, we are thinking about a project mixing the play to earn and what we call the health to earn. And the idea is to mix this technology to share all this feedback about the play to earn. For example, one of the main and famous example of the play to earn is the Sandbox project. Yeah. And with the Sandbox, what is interesting with the Sandbox project is the fact that maybe 1 or 2 million people in the world use this game to make money. And our idea is to use a sort of play to health to earn some incentivized token to purchase, for example, some teleconsultation, to stop to smoke, for example, to reduce your level of stress using this type of incentivization through the token or through the NFTs. And also to use your smartphone without a specific design, but just to use your smartphone, all the sensors, including in the smartphone, to prove this with a GPS, with with the camera, also analyzing color of your skin, analyzing your BPM or whatever. So yes,
there are many apps already that you can actually use the camera to screen yourself for cancer spots or whatever. These sort of things that you normally do at the physician, you could actually start using technology, applications, a smartphone to track yourself. And I think it's interesting. It's an interesting concept, which is not play to earn. It's like a health to earn. Just keep yourself healthy. And I think Stepan can fall into this category, right? Like you are doing sport, but you're keeping yourself healthy. That's how we track you. But if you take the next leap, which is smoking, addictions, or even nutrition, well-being, all these things can be tracked. Okay, 1-2 times per week, you can do this, yoga or whatever, and then we reward you for this. In some ways, the many healthcare providers, they have these sort of booklets, right? You can just stamp it. Like you do your dental checkup or you do stuff, and then you will get discounts on things like this. But this is like the next level. This is the most customization level possible, right? It's fully onto you. You can move modules around. No, I don't smoke, but I want to do this. I want to swim, but I want to. And this is fantastic. And in the space that you are right now here, the amount of variables and inputs you're bringing together is fantastic, right?
Yeah, exactly. And nowadays you can make everything with a smartphone. You don't need to have sensors or external medical devices. You can do everything with your smartphone. And the idea, because the play tool or the health tool is inherited to your smartphone, to your mobile app,
Yeah,
and you use just your smartphone to to give some instruction to
yeah, absolutely.
and to get some reward also, because this is the essence, the nature of the health
Absolutely.
tool.
I think the gamification is going to be touching so many layers in society. I saw a project, it was called Party to Earn.
Yeah.
So you were partying and then you were receiving tokens from this application, which is something like, okay, if I was in my 20s, I would say, okay, I will be rich taking these tokens. But now I'm like, I'm out of this.
Yeah, it's a type of
This is the
of
Web3 application, right? Like limitless solutions and limitless things. Huh? So do you think your company eventually is going to become like a service provider, or you want to stick yourself to consulting because of your background, the value you add? What's your vision?
Probably we will stay a consulting company, a provider maybe for governments willing to to work on this type of solutions for their administration, for their hospitals, because hospitals willing to turn into these technologies also. And so what is interesting with the blockchain and all these decentralized technologies is the fact that you have more transparency, you have more data integrity. And in all the plans, for example, in France, in all the healthcare policies in France, because it's my country, we see a lot of recommendation, instruction about data integrity, transparency for the data patient. And I think that this technology will be also useful for public bodies, public entities. And I think in the future, yes, we could be maybe the advisor of certain government in the healthcare part of blockchain. And it's our goal, yes.
You're already involved actively with the European Commission, which is a governing body of I would say, the European region. What do you do there? You were mentioning one day that you actually do meetings all the time. You gather in different cities. You introduce different projects and people that are actually bringing the space forward. So what's your role there, and how do you see the institutions adopting these new technologies in healthcare?
Yes, it's interesting. The network, I represent the European Institute of Technology and Innovation, which is maybe the equivalent of the MIT of Boston. Europe wanted its MIT, and they created this type of European Institute of Technology. And what is interesting with this project is the fact that we're aware about all these technologies, and the first door to approach this topic is all the educational content we created by the past. And for the future, we maybe think to create maybe a token to reward the community. Nowadays, we are more than maybe 3,000 members, active members all across Europe, in France, Germany, Spain, and so on. And the idea will be maybe, so we talk about it during some meeting. The idea will be maybe to create a sort of an incentive tokens to involve the people in the community. So yes, this type of technology is present in our reflection. And I think that Europe could be a pure player in this field by education. We also have, and from Spain, from Germany, we also have big player in software, in the software area, in other area, that we could be a pure player at an international level. And I'm very optimistic for the future.
Absolutely. No, yeah, me too. I think that the things are moving, I would say, in a faster than they should. Normally, it takes time to implement regulations and to create papers, but I think that it's a movement behind of blockchain that is pushing forward the technology quite fast. And I think the institutions are seeing this through, and not only because they see the adoption, but I think they see the benefit behind, right? How the technology is providing so much room for improvement in every layer of the society, that I think everybody's trying to jump in as fast as possible to define their roadmap. I think that's important. And you're also in between both sides, I would say. Why? Because you're in the middle, you're involved with the European Commission in this institute, and then at the same time you are consulting with companies. So you are in between companies and regulations and so on. So you can see both sides. How do you see the big companies, corporation, looking at Web3 and blockchain, do you think this is something that are really actively looking, or is more okay, we are exploring it but not yet ready to jump in?
So without doubt, these companies are exploring the field of blockchain, such as Carrefour for France in the retail. You have Sanofi next week in Vivatech. Sanofi will present some application, some new way to resync the data management through the blockchain. You will have also Binance. Binance will be present in Vivatech. And Binance, I think, maybe have a view on this field, healthcare, to talk about healthcare.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that big companies are exploring, but also are implementing some right now. For example, big company and big pharmaceutical company are exploring and are, yes, implementing some projects in this field. For example, for drug tracking to avoid fake drugs, mainly in Africa, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You have some development in terms of participant recruitment in clinical trials, because as nowadays the fact to recruit some people for clinical trial, it's long, it's time consuming, it has a huge cost.
Yeah.
And I think that blockchain could be, and smart contracts also could be an interesting way to improve this type of heavy process. To give you an example, more than 60% of clinical trial don't reach the final step of participant recruiting. And blockchain, if we use blockchain, it could maybe less than that, maybe 30% or less than 30%.
Yeah.
So I think that this big company, of course, it's for big pharma, of course, it's for CROs. I don't know, CROs. The CROs is this type of subcontractor of the pharmaceutical industry, working on a preclinical phase, working on the pharmacovigilance. Blockchain could be an interesting way to improve the process.
Yeah, we have seen actually many companies doing pool management. Like they are adopting the data through blockchain and using a pool for research, for uploading the data on smart contracts. There are many solutions now. Patterns also as well. I think the application of blockchain for the data is limitless, and I always compare it with the adoption of, I would say, web. It's not Web 2. It's more like when companies were entering internet in general, and they were like, why do I need social media? Why do I need a website? And suddenly, slowly, they had to build up the presence online. But I see that this major adoption right now because the immediate effects is the data management. Before it was more like your online presence, your marketing, your branding, but now you can see that actually the applications that they are bringing, they are actually accelerating their solutions and the security, the safety, the pool. I think we're in a different stage of adoption, and right away they just got it. Okay, this is something great. And you're talking about data, but what about NFTs, for example? What about, you were talking about disabled people or elder people? What do you think the metaverse is going to bring solutions to them? These people, they cannot really move, the autonomy. You have a telemedicine, you have a metaverse where they can enjoy actually with other people. What do you think about not the data collection or management, but NFT and metaverse?
So what is NFT? NFT is somewhere, it's an asset. It's a virtual asset showing your property on a virtual or on physical things. And I think that NFTs in healthcare, my sector, NFT in healthcare has a brilliant future, maybe in Europe, but maybe more in US or maybe more in China or other country. So the point is that in Europe, you have a regulation. Sorry, it's legal stuff. But in Europe, you have a bunch of regulations like GDPR, for example, or all the bioethics laws. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to implement this type of NFTs for healthcare due to the fact that in US, for example, your voice, your face, maybe your DNA is a part of you, but it's also a sort of concept, a patrimonial concept, and you can sell it, by the way. But in France, but in Spain, in Italy, you can sell your attribute of your personality.
Yeah.
You can sell your voice because it's an attribute of your personality. It's not patrimonial. It's an attribute. It's like that. It's civil rights. And so I think that NFTs and healthcare is maybe will maybe complicated to implement some project in Europe for now.
Yeah.
But yes, I quite optimistic for the future, because NFT could be also a way to reward the participant of a clinical trial, as we say. And I think that we will find some breaches in this sector. So don't worry, there will be some businesses in this sector. But yes, there is this question of regulation that is present for now. But I think that NFTs in healthcare, it's a huge topic with a brilliant future. For example, and it's what maybe you will make with DNAVerse, and we talk about it, the decentralized identification. And the decentralized identification is an emerging topic in the field of blockchain. So you can get some credential by different doors on the network, and each stakeholders gives you a credential to make an identification. And it could be interesting to use some avatar, to use some NFTs to get this credential and to get some services, insurance services, or I don't know, administrative services.
Absolutely.
And I think it could be maybe a way in this field to.
Obviously we have seen few applications of the NFTs, which is the ownership, the digital asset. As you will see, in Europe we have regulation for the attributes. You own your attributes, you cannot sell it, you cannot make commerce with those. But in some other countries you are allowed to. So let's see in which direction we go beyond the art, because now we're seeing PFPs and NFT or houses or real estate. It's something more like artistic thing. But probably, as you will say, identification, or in our case human identification, which is our goal, to use the genetics to identify humans in the metaverse. But what about if you identified as a human, and that avatar could be used to log in sandbox or decentralized, right? Doesn't need to be showing who you are. It's always that you are a real person, and then this avatar represents you, but it's anonymous, still remains anonymous. I think that there's a long road down here, and I think we need to all go together and explore it and see how we do it. We talk about the healthcare and the data. In our case, genetics. Are you familiar with genetics? What do you think of what we're doing at DNAVerse?
With genetics, from my previous studies, I know a little bit about genetics, about behavior genetics. And in that way, I think that maybe DNAVerse has a brilliant future in that way, because behavior genetics is the fact to study. It's not me, it's the researcher saying that, but you can show that, for example, a certain gene could be responsible for a certain action. It's very behavioral, but you can prove, for example, that yes, this gene or that gene could be responsible for the children of a certain type of antisocial behaviors or some addiction regarding certain drugs and so on. And it could be maybe something interesting to use the genetics and these NFTs, anonymized NFTs, to provide some psychological studies, for example, or to get some insights for a government, also respecting, of course, the regulations about researches, about the consent, also about the consent. But it could be maybe promising for behavioral genetics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something that we are really highlighting all the time. Like, we can use your genetics to customize your well-being, your behavior, to first of all to let you know who you are and to understand yourself a bit better, and then apply the tools that we are going to provide you to use your genetics to know yourself better and improve your life. This could be falling into the category of health awareness, and it's something that in the tokenomics in the future, it's something that we are considering. Like, improve yourself, use your genetics, use your data, make a good use of it, and then improve yourself, improve your life, and then get rewarded for it. This is the road, more or less, that we're going down the line here. And how do you think the regarding science in general, the decentralized science? I think we're talking about the research, for example, right? The research studies, how this is failing more like 60%. It's a bit problematic to see. What do you think will be one of the major adoptions in the years to come for decentralized science? Do you have any project or maybe a vision that say, okay, this particular field is going to be affected positively, tremendously in the future.
We didn't work on on clinical projects using block. We worked with client providing some decentralized services to improve clinical trial called audit, for example, but we didn't work directly on project using, for example, the blockchain to reward the participant. And in France, for example, you have a company named Emblema that you maybe that creates a sort of a token vault for the participant during clinical trials to reward the provider of the data during clinical trial, to reward also the patient, the participant, and all this ecosystem is good, is virtuous for the clinical trial. And I think they use their own token, maybe they use their own blockchain. And we see nowadays this type of project emerging.
Funding, right? It's one of the ideas that I have, or the most immediate idea that I get in my mind is the funding. How to find funding decentralized that could help to develop research or project that in a normal situation you have to go through institutions or round of funding that they don't really see the way, or maybe it could be useful but it's not applicable to a large number of population, and maybe they say, okay, it's not worth it to invest in this one. I think this is one of the main applications, right? To use maybe DAO to allocate some fund in different research and projects.
Behind the blockchain, you have something interesting for a clinical trial. It's smart contracts. It's like an algorithm. If the participant gives you his consent, if he says yes, you can use my data to develop certain. You can use it. If it's yes, it's okay. You can use the data, and the smart contracts works like that. And I think that blockchain, and especially the smart contracts, is this sub-technology that is very useful for the clinical trial to accelerate the process into the clinical trial, and maybe to get more easily, for example, the consent. And we talk about the consent management or the dynamic consent management. It's a new field in this area also, and I think that all these sub-technologies behind blockchain could be useful, like smart contract, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I think as soon as we start connecting bridges in different lines, as you say, blockchain, smart contract, NFT, metaverse, you start closing the gap between all of them. I think we're going to start seeing major adoption and even more solutions that right now we cannot even think of. So, Lucas, like a last question for you. What's the next step now for you? What's your plan in the near future?
Yeah, very good question. Holidays in the coming weeks. So the future milestone will be to honor all the web series we sell to many stakeholders in Europe. We will maybe work with the spatial agency. We will maybe work with company in the data management. We will maybe work with some technology provider with facial recognition. And we want to stay in this field, the disruptive and innovative healthcare solutions. And we want to approach innovative topics, and it's always to bring some innovative topics. We talk about artificial intelligence and neurological diseases, about longevity through the cells, and we want to be maybe disruptive. And it's maybe our director line. It's maybe our goal to stay on that way.
If you are thinking to be disruptive, I think you are early enough to do it. I think we are in the right moment to change the world in many different ways, and those dedicating themselves full time now in creating, innovating, contacting with others, building a community. I think this is what's going to be shaping the near future, and I think you are in that path already. So I wish you all the best. And Lucas, it has been a pleasure. Super interesting conversation with you. I think in the future we will be talking more about maybe collaborations or how to apply your solutions and our solutions in different many ways. But it has been a pleasure having you today, have your insight. Anytime you have any new thing you can tell us, please come around and we'll be happy to host you.
So thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And so I saw that your team is very proactive in this sector. And I'm very optimistic for the future to see people like you. Yes. So go to another horizons, mixing metaverse, DNA, and yes, some amazing topics. And yes, so congratulations.
Thank you,
Sincerely,
Lucas.
congratulations.
Thank you, Lucas. So for everybody, give Lucas a follow. He will have the social media handles here and follow his project and his company. He's doing a great job. And we will leave it here. Again, thanks, Lucas, for being with us. And everybody, see you next time in the next episode of DNAVerse podcast. Bye-bye, Lucas. Thank you.
Thanks, Juan. Thanks.